The businessman's problem. A successful businessman lived in a big, modern mansion in a very wealthy neighborhood. He liked things to be exactly the way he wished, and he thought he deserved everything he had. One morning, he woke up and looked out of the window in his studio, and he didn't like what he saw. A young homeless man was lying on the street opposite his house, sleeping. The businessman thought this took away from the splendor of his house, and he wanted to remove the man, but he didn't know how. Well, he wasn't going to get near him himself, no. Someone else would have to sort the problem out. The businessman had a housekeeper, whom he paid way too little for her hard work. The housekeeper had a big family of her own, and she struggled to support it with the little money she made. Her husband had recently been fired from his job due to the economic recession. That morning, the businessman called the housekeeper into his study. Looking outside the window, he said, "Do you see that homeless man over there? I want you to remove him from our street." Sir, but how?" the housekeeper asked, puzzled. "I don't know. You'll have to think of a solution. That's what I pay someone for." "Okay, but sir, I have no idea how to do it." "Listen, I have lots of other things to get on with, and I cannot discuss this all day. Put it this way, if you don't remove him, I suggest you look for another job straight away." "No, sir, please don't fire me. I need this job so much. My family literally depends on me right now." "Well then, you'd better find a solution to that man on the street. Now off you go, I have other people to see." The housekeeper, scared and desperate, began to think. That same evening, she was at home with her 3 children and husband, preparing a meal in the kitchen. The children, she noticed, were definitely getting a little too thin for their age. And when she spoke to her husband, she noticed he wasn't completely sober. He had never really drunk before losing his job. This was getting serious. She felt pressure piling up on her. There was no way she could lose her job. She thought of her children and her husband. She wasn't a bad person, but after much thinking, she came up with a plan to remove the homeless man from the street. The next day, the housekeeper left the businessman's house to go to the supermarket to do some shopping for the businessman and his family. She stopped in front of the young homeless man who was sleeping and said, "Hello." The man woke up and stared up at her, a little scared, then asked, "Could you spare some change, please?" "I don't have any money here, but if you help me now, I'll give you something later." The man looked intrigued and replied, "Yes, of course. How can I help you?" "I'm going shopping now at the supermarket, and I could really use an extra pair of hands to carry the bags." The man looked very keen. He accepted and got up. So, the housekeeper and the young homeless man walked together to the supermarket. They were an odd pair. She dressed as a housekeeper, neat and tidy. He scruffy, with dirty clothes, no shoes and a messy beard. People in the street stared and made comments under their breath. When they reached the supermarket, the young man helped the housekeeper do all the shopping, taking items off the shelves and placing them in a trolley. The housekeeper, who was pushing the trolley, directed him. 2 bottles of Chardonnay, a pack of smoked salmon, a large bag of dog food, the expensive one down there, a jar of olive pâté, and so on. After they had got everything on the shopping list, the housekeeper paid and they left the supermarket. On the way back to the businessman's house, The young man carried most of the bags, as agreed, walking next to the housekeeper. People on the street kept staring and muttering as they passed. As they approached the mansion, she stopped and said, "Thank you so much for helping me with the shopping." The young man, looking hopeful, said, "Could I have that money you promised?" The housekeeper, with a heavy heart, for she knew she was tricking the man, said, "Oh, yes, of course." She opened the front gate, entered the front garden, and then turned to the man. "Come in and close the gate. If you wait here in the front garden, I'll be down in 2 minutes and give you the money." She then opened the front door of the house, went upstairs, and called the police. The young man was waiting in the front garden between the front gate and the front door when he heard the sound of a police car stopping in front of the house. 2 police officers came out and barked at him. "Hey you, what are you doing there?" "I'm waiting for the housekeeper to give me some money. I helped her with the shopping." "Oh, a likely story." Before he could open his mouth in protest, the front gate was buzzed open from inside, and the policemen came in and pounced on the young man, who looked utterly confused and terrified. He looked up at the window, but only caught a glimpse of a curtain twitching, as the first policeman barked again. "You were breaking and entering. Come on, show us your hands. You're under arrest, son." And then they just grabbed him and drove him away in the car. He wasn't seen on the streets again for a very long time. The following morning, the businessman woke up and looked out of his study window. To his satisfaction, the homeless man had gone. He called the housekeeper to his study. "Well, that man is gone, it seems. Good job." The housekeeper, not feeling proud at all, mumbled, "Thank you, sir," and made to leave. But the businessman spoke again. One more thing. Apparently you were seen walking, talking, and even shopping with that homeless man yesterday." The housekeeper felt her heart sink. The businessman continued, "I cannot be associated with people like that. I'm sure you understand. It looks very bad for me, especially in this neighborhood. I'm afraid I'm going to have to let you go anyway." And he did let her go that same evening, despite her desperate pleading. But that was it. She had to pack her few things and leave immediately, feeling desperate, guilty, and stupid at the same time. She made her way back to her family, her heart sinking lower every step of the way. The morning after, the businessman woke up and looked out of his study window, as he did first thing every morning. He was in great spirits. Things were back to normal, and the new housekeeper would be there any minute too. He pulled the curtains open and left the room to have breakfast downstairs, not noticing, however, that another young and homeless man had just turned the corner in the street and sat down in the same exact spot, opposite his mansion. The poor fight the poor, while the rich stay on top.